What have you got for me next week?
Yes, next week. What do I have for you next week?
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 61.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can just get one more person
to join us on our hill to die on. You know, the end of the school year was weird this year to me.
Oh?
And I think the weirdness was that often the end of the school year is punctuated by a lot of events at the end. Besides graduation. I mean, graduation is, of course, one of the big ones for us.
Yeah.
There were some this year, too.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is that I didn't have to plan for them. So I feel like a lot of the time I'm planning for graduation, helping plan anyway. I'm not the only one. But then I plan for this event. I work up to it, and that event happens. I work up to another event, and that event happens. I work up to another event, and that event happens. And this year, there were some events I was participating in, but nothing was major, and nothing was I really the one in charge of. There was one year, about 3 years ago now, where the week of school ending, I had a big event every single evening that I had to be a part of, or chose to be a part of. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Hurry up, we got to prepare for this, or hurry up, we got to finish up this, or hurry up, we got to finish up this. And it was boom, boom, boom. And this year, it's like we had graduation, and then I participated in a few little goodbye things, but that was it. To me, almost the year kind of petered out. And part of it is, like, neither of us are flying overseas, right? Which is another...
Yeah.
You got to get school done, and then you got to pack. That didn't happen for either of us, so that was kind of nice, I guess. But yeah, I feel like the year just kind of petered out in the end because
you didn't have as many events.
Right.
And the events you did have, you weren't the key person in charge.
Right. I mean, there were still a lot of goodbyes, things like that, but it just wasn't the same as what it always is, I feel like. It's just funny, comparatively.
I will say that, I mean, for me, every single year always ends with the same thing that happens to me. I finish out the school year, and then for the next 3 days, I feel like my body feels miserable. Essentially, like, my body is just like, oh, you don't have to worry about getting subs anymore. All right, I am now allowing you to get sick. I generally don't take a lot of sick days in the school year. I mean, occasionally I'll take a few here and there, but for the most part, I tend not to take a whole lot of sick days. But it always happens that the moment school lets out for the summer, that's when my body's like, oh, okay, you have no responsibilities. Now we can get sick. And it's never like sick. It's just like the exhaustion hits me and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to sleep for the next couple of days. So essentially, in between all of my books that I've been listening to, I've just been waking up, playing a game, take a nap, wake up, play a game, take a nap. I think I have officially screwed up my sleep schedule. Actually,
I have too, because I've stayed up late with my family, but then I've gotten up at my normal school waking time to go to school as normal. So yeah, I've gone to school the past few days. I don't know. I got a bunch of things done. But in some ways, I felt like when the school year petered out and I was here, I was like, great, I'll get a bunch of things done. On Wednesday, I started working on a server that we're replacing. And that worked out great until I realized that the existing server is still being heavily used right now. It was printing report cards still, so I couldn't switch it off. So I had to wait. So I realized, there's a whole bunch of things I couldn't do. Even on Friday afternoon, I went in and said, hey, are you guys done? Because they had sent off report cards Friday morning, but then the accountant who uses it said, no, I still need to use it. So I was like, okay, fine. It's part of his job. So I was going to do it this weekend, but I haven't done it. I'll probably come in some evening this week. So I got that close, but I didn't get it finished. And then I got a bunch of tiny things done. I'm down to like 20 something in my email, Ryan. It's great. Oh, I got up to 30 because I let it sit over the weekend. Even though I got a whole bunch of little things done, I didn't get any big things done, so I felt like I didn't get anything done the past 3 days. On Friday, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to get this book listened to. Yeah, I downloaded it on Thursday. I tried to put it up on Overcast. I think I put it up on Overcast Thursday night. So I was like, okay, I'll try a few times, but usually I have found that downloading from Overcast a book at night does not work well. The congestion at night, just for my neighbors, just makes it impossible to download a book from Overcast at night. So I was like, well, I'll click try a few times. I'll click try before I go to bed, and hopefully it'll try overnight and succeed. So I did that. Yeah, of course, it failed a few times. Clicked try before I went to bed, and then woke up in the morning, and it still hadn't succeeded. And I was like, oh my goodness. So like, fine, Sometimes I can click it in the morning and it'll just download real quick because there's no congestion in the morning. It didn't work. So then I was like, fine, I'll try when I go to school because I'll go to school Friday morning. It didn't work at school. Kept trying a few times at schools. Wasn't working. I was like, oh my goodness, it's Friday. I got to get this book on my phone. So I uploaded it to the Book Player app that I have. And I was like, fine, I'll just listen to it in Book Player. It's not quite as nice as Overcast, but I'll be able to at least listen to it. So I got it on Book Player, and that worked fine. I listened to probably about an hour Friday night, maybe an hour and a half. I was like, okay, I'm making pretty good progress, but I'm a little bit worried that I'm going to be able to finish it in time.
Which meant that you basically read most of the book on Saturday.
I finished it like late Saturday morning. So I woke up Saturday morning and the book had finished downloading to my phone from Overcast, which I was like, oh, great. At least it's an Overcast. I wanted to go running Saturday morning. And I was like, I don't really want to take my phone. I just won't listen. I won't be able to get through the book. Oh, well, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure I'll be able to get to it, but I'll let Ryan know midday sometime.
And I would have been fine with it.
Right. Still would have been 24 hours before. So then I found out that I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, it actually downloaded to my watch overnight too through Overcast. So I was like, oh, I could listen to it while I walk and run. So there we go. I got another 45 minutes of listening, maybe about 50 to an hour because of the rate I listen. 50 to an hour of the book done walking. And then right away I went into vacuuming and wiping the house. So I got another hour done there. And I had a whole bunch of chores to do Saturday morning. So I did all the chores and was just able to listen the whole time. And then by the time, I think it was, noonish, early afternoonish, I was had an hour to go in the book. And I was like, I'm going to finish this thing today. So yeah, I finished the whole book yesterday pretty much.
Yeah, it's not a long book.
No, it's not terribly long. But it just happened to work out that I was able to do a bunch of listening yesterday, a bunch of listening. I wasn't going to be able to listen to anything in the afternoon. I knew that. So I had to, if I was going to get it done, I at least had to be close by the end of the morning, and I had finished it by noon. It was 1 o'clock or something like that, which was just early enough. So I was like, whoa, book's done. So yeah, I was very worried for a little while there, and then all of a sudden I was done. What it meant was I couldn't listen to ATP. That's what I mean. I was halfway through ATP and I was like, now I'm going to have to listen to the book first. I'm going to have to stop listening to ATP and listen to the book first. This is no good. But yeah, I listened to the book first and then finished ATP. Yeah. I still finished ATP before my things on Friday afternoon. So I was good.
I was able to finish my my listen. Then I listened to Cortex and a few other things. Then I listened to another book. Yeah, I'm having a pretty productive week off of school so far. We've been on break for 4 days now. 4 days. Mm-hmm. And I've already finished 2 books.
Oh, good.
Now, to be fair, one of them was this one because I was rereading it. The other one was also a quick read, so I can't really say that it was a lot of reading, but because the other one was a Psalm for the Wild Built.
Oh, you read it before me. You're trying, huh?
Well, I couldn't have you read all of my books before I get to them. I think it's good, and I'm looking forward to book 2.
Good.
And then I started another book earlier today, and I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one ends up, because it's got an interesting premise. It's in a sci-fi universe where there is a position called the Master of Formalities. They are the ones who work directly under rulers and lords and are essentially there to remind everybody how to keep proper decorum and what is the proper protocol for doing everything. It seems very interesting and it sounds fun so far, is really what it comes down to. So we'll see how this one turns out. I feel like this is going to be a pretty productive reading summer. Nate, I know that every time I approach the summer months, because we have 2 months of more calm times, this is the time where I usually get very ambitious and want to get a lot of things done. So I'm going to ask you, what are your summer plans like? What are your goals and your dreams for the summer?
Well, I really want to see if I can get my project to product phase by the end of the summer. There's still a whole lot I want to work on, but I at least want to get it to a point where I can start selling it to other schools. Don't know if I'll get there. I think I have limited my scope well. I mean, in my checklist of things to do, there is a line that says product. Mm-hmm. And I have tried to put things above and below that line to make as few things as possible above that line and only the things that are necessary be above that line, even though there are things that I want to do below that line. is the clincher, right? I want to do these things, but I'm going to drag them below the line because I really need to get it out the door. Even silly things like I really need at least a marketing site so that I can tell the listeners where to at least look at it. One of the reasons why I haven't named it is because there's nothing to see. Because as soon as you go to the domain name, it asks you to log in right away, which is a horrible experience if you're anybody but somebody who wants to go in and see what, see the grades of their kids or log in to enter grades for your class. Yeah, there's no homepage, so nothing to see, no product shots, no walkthrough video, nothing at all. So I want to get even that done, just at least something.
It makes sense.
Because actually, I have looked. Google will autocomplete the title of my thing. In fact, it autocompletes it with the name of our school behind it. It'll autocomplete, but of course, if you run the search on that autocomplete, nothing comes up because nobody links to me. So there's nothing to see. It would be nice to have at least a presence on Google.
Now you're asking for too much.
Well, that would require somebody linking to me, which could be our school, which would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Google has had no reason to discover it at the moment. Right now, the only links to my product are pointed to our school's parent portal. And even if we put them in the open, still, I don't even think Google would do it because the first thing's a login page. So I don't even think Google would link to it. Yep, that's a goal. I got to get a homepage so that it can work.
That's a goal?
Yep, that is a goal, to at least have a homepage, even if it all is a big login button.
Sounds like a good goal.
Yeah, even looking at this list of stuff, I think there's even a few more things I'm going to drag down below product. Like the ability to save rubrics for later. People have gotten pretty good at copying assessments, right?
Yeah.
Like I was going to have a whole rubric template area, which I think is not a bad thing to have still, but nobody has said that yet. Although, I think we have a fairly forgiving staff. So, I'm wondering if just nobody's saying it yet, but maybe it is still something that I could drag below product because nobody's clamoring for it, where there's a handful of other things in this list that people are actually clamoring for. Anyway, so, yep, hopefully I'll have some updates on that later.
When it's ready, then, I look forward to the day where we don't have to keep beeping out your product.
Yeah, beeping out the product name.
Well, as for me, I'm going to be pretty busy with several things. Well, first of all, I'd like to get a little bit further in some of the books that I've been telling myself I need to read.
Do you have a goal for 2022? So in Goodreads, I set up a goal for 2022. Are you going to try to do that too, or work yourself ahead of your goal?
For now, I'm going to see how far I get through the summer.
A goal for the summer, maybe? Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to leave off creating any goals until after the summer. And then based on where I am at the end of the summer, I'm going to update my goal then so that I keep it up during the rest of the year. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, I got to tell you, reading this book this weekend helped me keep up my goal. I was going to fall behind if I didn't read this book this weekend.
Well, I realized that during the first half of the school year, I might have forgotten a few of them, but I haven't read that many books since January. Most of the ones that I read, I think, were for this.
Well, and you have books you'll want to read for class coming up.
And that's the next thing. So the first thing was I just wanted to get a lot of reading in.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that I have to write a whole new class.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I need to get done or would like to get done over the summer is that I need to have this class essentially written by the end of summer, which I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to be a very interesting class. It is all about fantasy literature and how that interacts with one's beliefs in faith and theology, and how all of these stories that we tell are reflective of who we are as beings. I think it's going to be a great class, but I need to properly structure it, and I have some good ideas for the structure of it, especially based on things that will work with our current standards for our religion classes in our school. And I think that I have some good ideas, and I think that I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be a lot of reading, a lot of research, and a lot of things like that over the summer. And then in addition to all of that, in my boundless amounts of free time, I've set some word goal deadlines for some writing so that I utilize this time over the summer to, get some actual writing in.
Sounds good to me. It's going to make it hard, huh? Hard on yourself.
I'm giving myself a lot of things so I don't just while away and allow all of my summer to just disappear having done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I use my summer wisely.
We got some trips coming up, but I don't want to talk about them ahead of time. But the only interesting thing is this time I purchased bus tickets because we're traveling to Osaka possibly. Although today's the last day to cancel that ticket. So apparently we're traveling because I can't cancel anymore after this. Well, for free anyway. I'm curious at how it'll go because I've heard very mixed reviews about the bus trip. From the optimistic people I've heard, it'll be fine. The bus stops every 2 hours. You might get shaken awake a little bit, but you'll go right back to sleep and it'll be fine. I heard a guy saying, oh yeah, I was on a bus. It was a scary, cheap bus. Lots of people on it. I was like sleeping with my hands in my pockets so that my phone and wallet couldn't get slipped out of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And my wife was there in the room at the time. And I'm like, shh, don't tell her. There's differences already. Because there's 5 of us going, my whole family, and I have 3 children who all qualify for childfare still, surprisingly. My oldest daughter is basically middle school, but apparently she's still fit under the rule for child tickets, which is wonderful. Certain buses have no child fare, certain buses do, and one of the nicer bus companies had a child fare. So for the overall same price, I could purchase the expensive bus tickets because basically most of them are halved, or I could purchase a cheaper bus company but pay full fare on all of it. So I was like, oh, well, then I'm going to get the nicer bus company with the same outlay just because 3 tickets are cut in half, so that's quite nice. So because it's the more expensive bus company, I think it seems to be that there must be a lot of business people that sign up for it. Because I was noticing on the reservation page that even on the expensive bus company, and I ended up buying one of the more expensive buses, even on the expensive bus company, mostly because the timing and the locations worked better for pickup and drop off. The difference in fare between the more expensive bus and the cheaper buses is only like 500 yen. It's not enough to go the cheaper ones. So that bus was more reserved than the cheaper buses. So I was like, well, I'll just reserve on the nicer bus. But it seems like the business people must be reserving the seats ahead of time because like all of the nice seats on the nice bus were reserved. Only business people would do that. Nobody vacationing would probably do that because they would reserve seats in a row like I did. Like I reserved a whole row of seats. But it seems like individual people are reserving these seats, not like rows of seats like I was doing. So I'm not too worried about the bus ride. I am mostly worried about being shaken awake. But I'm trying to keep my wife from hearing the stories of, oh, yeah, I had to keep my hands in my pockets so that my stuff wouldn't get stolen. I'm like, what?
Now, is that somebody who was actually thought that something would get stolen, or was that just somebody being paranoid that something would get stolen?
Well, this person was not normally a paranoid person, but I think also that, I think they got the cheapest bus tickets on the cheapest bus because of, he was going with a mission thing. So the mission was not paying, they would buy the cheapest bus tickets on the cheapest bus. I think that bus is probably not the best bus to be on, which is not the bus I'm on. I think it was his situation, and I think it was that bus. I don't think we'll be in that situation. And I don't think all buses are like that either, but I think it was the one he was on. So I am not worrying about it. Again, my biggest worry, I think, is being shaken awake. I think that probably will happen. But I mean, one of the things that I've done in this trip is schedule a lot of extra time. So yeah, we're taking the night bus, but the whole next day, I have nothing scheduled. So if we're feeling up to it, we can go out and, if we slept a great night, then we'll just go out and tour. But if we're not feeling up to it, we'll just take naps. We'll be fine. We'll figure something out. And even on the way back, because we're taking a night bus on the way back, the day before taking the night bus, I didn't schedule anything there either. So if we're feeling fine, we'll just tour around again. But if we're not, we'll just relax somewhere and wait for the bus to come pick us up. So I've scheduled a whole lot of time to see how we feel. So you've taken the bus.
Yeah, I've taken the bus. I had no issue with it.
Because I think you were one of the people that said it'll shake you awake when they stop, but otherwise you'll be fine, right?
That was at least my experience with it. I think I might have said something to mark some hesitancy with bringing a whole family on, but I think that was about the extent of it for me. Yeah, like I said, I had no issue. Everything worked out for me, no problem.
I think it'll be okay, and I think it's definitely better than me driving. Yeah, I could have saved a little bit more and driven. I mean, and one of the interesting things, because it's a night bus, well, if I was driving, I would have to drive during the day. And that would eat up a day. And then we'd probably have to get a hotel. If I was to follow the same schedule of let's take it easy, because this being one of our first trips down to Osaka, having a schedule of let's take it easy is very nice because we can then decide what we're going to do. And if you were to do that, then I'd have to pay for 2 more hotel nights, whereas the bus is acting as a hotel during those nights. So it's doing double duty in some ways, so that, it's kind of convenient.
Like I said, I had no issue with it. I thought it was perfectly fine.
I think so too. But it's definitely...
It's a new experience.
It's a new experience, and it's becoming a little bit nerve-wracking. So trying not to make it too much more nerve-wracking.
Well, if I know anything, the more you think about something, the more nerve-wracking it'll become.
So I'm trying not to think about it, and I'm trying to get my wife not to think about it too.
Well, make sure that she listens to your recording of this before you go on your trip.
No. This is being released after we go on our trip. It'll be good. It'll be
fine.
I'm sure it'll be a fun story to tell you all later.
In the recent couple of weeks, I decided to play a game, and I don't know why it took me so long to actually play this game, because I've owned this game for a while. How did I end up with it? I think I owned it because I got it on sale for like $5 or something like that, and I just never got around to actually playing it. And it's a very good game, and everybody said it was a good game, but I just never got around to it. So in 2018, a game called God of War was released. Now, God of War is not the first game in this series. So God of War is a interesting game because the older games are all about this fellow named Kratos. In the first game, he is introduced as a human being who makes a very bum deal with Ares and ends up selling his soul to get revenge, and then Ares essentially uses him to do a whole bunch of horrible things. And he becomes, shall I say, a little angry. And so the first game is all about his revenge plot to kill Ares, the god of war. In the later games, it's revealed that, oh, no, this isn't just a regular human. He's actually also the son of Zeus, because it's Greek mythology. Who isn't the son of Zeus? Throughout all the other older games, he just goes on a murderous rampage against the entire Greek pantheon. And if these games are known for one thing, they are known for aggressive amounts of gore and violence, and essentially this character who has one character note, and that is he is angry about everything. So those are the old games. So in 2018, they decided that they were going to make essentially a new version of the game, but not just rewriting the entire history. No, they were going to keep that entire history where he goes on this rampage against the Greek pantheon, but they were going to move it into a different setting. And so they moved it into Norse mythology. In the later games, he realized that he was a monster and was trying to turn his back on the life that he led. And the game opens with him essentially having run away to Midgard, because Norse mythology, to try to live out life as a normal human being. And the game opens with him chopping down a tree that he is going to use for his wife's funeral pyre. And as he's carrying the tree back to the river, he is joined by his son. His son is named Atreus. Afterwards, Kratos turns to his son and goes, "Did your mom ever teach you to hunt?" And he goes, yeah, she taught me. "All right, show me." And so immediately after he's just cremated his mother, they go hunting. The thing that is amazing about this game, the reason why I wanted to say how great this game is the fact that in every scene, they convey so much emotion in the character models, in the voice acting, in all of that, in all of these subtle cues. They collect the ashes from the funeral pyre, and the goal of the story is they want to release her ashes from the tallest peak in the realms. That's it. The entire game is just taking the ashes to the tallest peak and spreading her ashes there. Sure, a few things happen in between.
Fighting and things?
Oh yeah, there's fighting things. Because, you are a former god of war who is trying to eke out a normal living. And other beings aren't always, the most in favor of that. So the thing is, this character who has known nothing but anger, nothing but hatred, nothing but violence for so much of his life, is trying to be a father to his son and doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to essentially be a good father when he hates himself and he hates everything that he's done. And so he's trying to gently guide his son into being a better person than he was, while also realizing that he doesn't really know how to express emotion or caring or love for his son. But in all of his actions, you can tell how much he actually cares for his son. So there's a point where his son is crying over the fact that during the hunt, he shoots down a deer and didn't kill the deer in one hit. And so he has to kill the deer with a knife. And originally he tries to hand the knife to Kratos, your character. And Kratos says, no, you started it. You have to finish this. You shot the deer. You have to finish this. And so he forces this young boy who's like, he's got to be like 10 or 12 to stab this deer. And so his mom has just died. You have just cremated her. And now he has just ended the life of this deer. So he is dealing with a lot of emotions at that moment. Mm-hmm. And you see Kratos reach out a hand like he's about to kind of clasp the shoulder of his son. And he stops halfway, like he doesn't feel like he can, or that's the correct way to express like care or concern for his son. And he stops and doesn't clasp the son on his shoulder, and instead grabs the knife, cleans off the knife, and hands the knife back to his son. And just seeing the weight of all of the emotion conveyed in essentially what is the not doing something is just amazing. The soundtrack is just spot on for this entire game. It is wonderful. It is very interesting how they take Norse mythology and have woven in this character who doesn't seem like he should fit, but they've actually really done some good research into mythology and found a way to make all this stuff fit with Norse mythology and how Ragnarok is supposed to happen and all that stuff. It's a fun game. I think it's really good with how much emotion they're able to carry out in the actions and the set pieces. There are a few parts where I think they get over a couple of emotional turmoils a little quickly, but all in all, it's a good story. So, Nate, This week I had you read a book, and the book that we read has to do a lot with gender norms and a lot with female characters being able to step up and do things that in their society, a lot of people don't think that women can do. So I thought for our pick 2, we should pick 2 other stories where we have strong female characters or good female protagonists who just take the lead of the story. On that note, what is one of those stories that you would like to share today?
Since having daughters, I was kind of realizing as showing television to my children, what are they going to start watching? What do I want them to watch? And we had cable a while back, and I was looking at the shows on Disney Channel and was at least semi-impressed with most of what's on it. Not all of it, especially with what was on it when my kids were preschool age, shows about kids learning how to work together, how to be polite, how to be kind, how to respect your parents, things like that. And one of the shows on was just beginning when my kids were young, or at least when my oldest was young, although all of them did watch it. It's a show called Sophia the First. And it's about a girl whose mother marries the king and she becomes a princess all of a sudden and then has to adjust to those changes. I don't think it's the best show all the time. I think it has a lot of good points, especially like all the lessons she learns. I think that she goes off too much without telling her parents where she is. There's a lot of that happening.
As a princess?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do her parents think? Do they think somebody's just with her all day? Like she's just off doing her own things. Leaving that aside, again, things that have to happen as a plot,
There are probably 2 bodyguards who are like always in a bush somewhere behind her.
Well, the way the story goes, I don't think that can always be the case. But anyway, especially in the later seasons where it's like, no, we got to get her way far away so that we can do these cool things. I'm like, yeah, it went a little bit weird toward the end. Oh, because we have to heighten the intensity. Anyway. Sophia the First is not a bad one. Of the Disney Channel shows, I think I'm picking that one. I think, what's it called? Rapunzel, the Tangled show, the Tangled series. That was a very good show too. But I think Sophia the First, mostly because of where it lands, where it was new when my kids were growing up, it kind of just settled with them. I mean, since then, they've had, Doc McStuffins, Elena of Avalar. There's been some other good shows, but I think Sophia resonated with them a lot. So I think I'm picking that one of the Disney Channel shows. I think if you have little girls growing up, I think it's not a bad show to show them for sure. And I think now probably all of it's on Disney Plus. I haven't checked, but probably it all is.
Probably. All right. Well, I am going to talk about another game, actually.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, you know what? Why stick to one game today? There's a game that came out a while back called Horizon Zero Dawn. There's actually now a sequel that came out pretty recently in the past, I want to say 3 or 4 months. At this point. Yeah. But Horizon Zero Dawn has a character named Aloy. And Aloy is this really cool character, grows up as an outcast of her society and stumbles upon a underground cave where there's a lot of weird tech. And eventually she discovers this little device that allows her to interact with some of that old tech. Now, I may have buried the lead a little bit with this one, but her society, the place that she grew up, is a very rural, rustic kind of existence. But there are robot dinosaurs. There are animals that are roaming around the countryside that look like robot versions of dinosaurs, like little raptors and various kinds of monsters and things like that, all completely robotic. So when she stumbles into this cave and is able to interact with some of the things, it slowly drip feeds you information throughout this game that this is how to put this? It's not post-apocalyptic, it's post-post-apocalyptic. We've gone through the apocalypse and society has recovered to a certain level. So we have societies, we have people eking out their existence, but there are roaming robotic dinosaurs. And how these things came about is revealed throughout the game, and it's a pretty big plot point, so I'm going to not say it here. But the thing is, this is a character who grew up as an outcast of her society, and through various means helps save the entire world. And she does it without relying on other people. I mean, she gets help. She becomes friends with people. She works with people, but she at no point becomes reliant on somebody else's favors. She basically looks at the world and goes, there is a mystery here that I know I need to solve. And so she seeks to solve the mystery. And in that solving the mystery, in that like seeking after this truth, she realizes more and more about the world and ends up trying to step in to prevent essentially a second disaster from happening that would make the world end again. Anyway, really, really cool game. Very interesting. She's just a great character who seeks after these things for her own motivations. But when the truth of the world is revealed to her, is like, no, we can't let this happen. So I'm going to step up and try to do my best to prevent this from happening.
All right. So picking a last one is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I got a few. We're going to talk about Fifth Season later.
Yeah.
That's a good one. It has a strong female lead. We'll talk about it then. So that's coming up in a few episodes. I think I'm going to go to a book, and I was trying to determine which book to go to. I read recently, because my daughter's class was reading it again, and I realized I had the ebook. I read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which is a great book about a black family and a black girl coming to terms with racism in the world, which is an excellent book to read. You should read it. But I think I'm going to go with another kid's book because it was one of my favorite books growing up, and it's called The Mixed Up Files of Basil E. Frankweiler. And I read this book to my kids when they were young.
Sorry, when you said it's another kid's book and it was one of my favorites when I was growing up, I was like, is it going to be A Wrinkle in Time?
That's a good one too, but no, Mixed Up Files of Basil E. Frankweiler, which is a nice mouthful to say. I think it's one that won the Newbery Award. And it's about a girl named Claudia Kincaid who decides that she isn't getting the respect that she deserves, so she decides to take her younger brother with her and run away. And one of the reasons why she wants to take her younger brother, even though she is masterfully organized, she does not have the money. Her younger brother has saved up a small fortune in card betting with his friends on the bus, apparently, plus his birthdays and Christmas presents. And they decide to run off to New York City because they're in Connecticut and live in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which to me was the greatest adventure thing that you could do. Since my school was near New York City, we would often take field trips to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I was thinking, wow, look at this. They're, running away and staying in that place. How cool is that? And another fun thing about this book is this girl gets tangled up in a mystery. Well, by her choosing. She's not involved, or she chooses to research the mystery that she sees in front of her. And fun stuff happens because of that. I always thought it was a fun book because it's a girl who ran away. She stays in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and she gets to solve this cool puzzle. So it's quite a fun story. Reading it back now, in fact, I was looking at the Wikipedia page on it just before recording, and I love how it says, the funniest thing is the inflation. Since the writing of this book in the mid-60s, the book talks about the boy saving up $24, and Wikipedia quotes that as $187 adjusted for inflation, it's 2019. So it's like, whoa, okay. I mean, they do talk about buying a sandwich for $1.05 or something like that. Well, I guess you can do that now too. But anyway, they were talking about buying a sandwich in a deli for $1 or something. Or
yeah, you can buy a sandwich for $1. It's just, let's not talk about what kind of sandwich it is.
Exactly. There's a few other instances of you did how much for what? For how much money? That's really cheap. But yeah, it's the 1960s. I almost kind of wish they release another version adjusted for inflation so that it can hit home with some of the more modern readers.
Can you imagine if they just re-released all of the books that needed to with adjustments for inflation?
Anyway, yeah, that's kind of silly. But anyway, it's a great kids book. But interesting. I mean, I liked this theme of picking girl things. There's tons out there, right? And these are just two picks. I've looked at this more because I had daughters through time. So it's definitely, there's lots more. And, I'm not even sure I picked the best two, but yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah. I just picked two that I liked. I mean, I'm not even just thinking of the best two.
Right.
Because the problem is the second one that I thought of, there were a lot of good books that I wanted to bring up. I think of all of the movies that I watch, all the games that I play, all the books that I read, and there's a lot of really strong female characters. I think when I was deciding on which ones I wanted to pick the ones where the female character who we would consider to be the lead character was not just the lead, but was also clearly the protagonist. There was no debate about it. Whereas there's others that I could think of where it's more of a shared role between two characters. I think there are just so many really good books out there, have a great, strong female lead. And I think it's just more interesting than always having essentially the knight in shining armor trope.
Yep.
But there is always one that I really love and love to talk about. And we've already talked about it, but I'm going to bring it up again anyway. And that is from the book, The Emperor's Soul.
I was thinking about that one too. That was a good one. But I was going to discount Closed and Common Orbit. Anyway. But you can go with Emperor's Soul again. That's fine.
Because for me, the characters that I really love, the ones that I really get attached to, are ones who are smart and clever and independent and are able to solve problems. And Shay is all of that and more. She is intelligent. She has thought through all of her problems. She has figured out a way out of the issues that she gets stuck into and is genuinely just a good, honest, and decent character.
Good, honest, and decent.
An honest thief. Yes, I know.
Thief, yeah, exactly. That's okay.
But you know what I mean. They're honest in their craft is the best way to put it. And, it's just a really cool, interesting character that I really wish that there was more from this perspective. And I am very upset that there is not, but who am I? I thought about a lot of different characters that I could have brought up.
We have a lot in what we've already talked about, which is kind of fun. So, I mean, if you haven't listened to some others, take a look at our history and read some of that. I mean, even what's your favorite again? The one with two storylines.
This Is How You Lose the Time War?
Yeah, that one.
Yes. In that book, they do get born into other timelines and things like that. There's one part where they are born into the shape of essentially an animal. I mean, they're still identifying as she, so I think they would still identify as female in that case. Mm-hmm. I always wondered if they would consider themselves more gender fluid than female, but since they use the pronoun she, I would say, no, I would still count that as female. But we've talked about a lot. In just thinking about the ones that we've done,
I think Mistborn and all the Becky Chambers books stick out.
I mean, there were a couple of other interesting ones. I read a book a while back called Bone Shaker, which is an interesting story, but centers around a mother trying to save her son. 3 Parts Dead is a Max Gladstone book, which I thought was an interesting story, centering around a woman. She works in magical contracts dealing with gods that are essentially corporations. Cool, but weird premise. A lot of the other ones are hard because they're more of ensemble casts than they are a female lead. But like I joked about a little bit earlier, I mean, thinking about my childhood, I was thinking about like A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, there was Island of the Blue Dolphins is another kid's book that has a great female lead. Go and find some media like that and read it. It's fun stuff. Because,
like our book tells us later, gender norms are dumb.
That's the law. Oh, wait a
minute. So what do we have today? Well, let's see.
Weird things.
First, the drink. It is a fruits drink.
It's fruits cream soda with grape. So, like, what other fruits? Why didn't the other ones get named? Were we supposed to know what fruits cream soda meant besides with Muscat?
Hey, I'm just looking at this and going, hey, at least it's 10%.
10%. Yeah, mine has a little bit of sediment, so maybe that's a good sign.
That is a question.
It doesn't always appear to be a good sign.
I'm hesitant about this one. I think I'm slightly optimistic. I think cream sodas can be really good, and I like cream sodas, but I also know that this could fail all my hopes and dreams.
Yeah, mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how easily that can do it.
Yeah, I mean, the apple, the peach, the pineapple, separately, they're not bad sodas, potentially, so what would they be like together?
Is that an orange on there, too?
I think it's an orange, too. Mm-hmm.
The picture on here is one of an apple, grapes, orange, pineapple, peach, and banana, and they specifically notate that the Muscat is in there. All right.
Let's see.
Yep. That is a strong smell.
It smells good. Well, the with Muscat is because it's very heavy grape flavored.
Oh, yeah.
It's not bad, I think. The cream is noticeable, and the other fruits are noticeable after the fact, too.
But grape is the most predominant flavor. I think it's not bad.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Fanta grapes and stuff. If anything, the cream is washing out some of the other flavors.
Yeah. It'd be one thing if the cream was strong enough or flavorful enough. Basically something that set it apart or gave it a creamier feel. But it just feels like it's almost, hey, we've diluted the flavors down a little bit with something that feels close to a cream. Mm-hmm. Whereas a cream soda, for me, like a traditional cream soda, almost tastes like you allowed ice cream to melt in your soda.
And the difference is the traditional cream soda is melon flavored.
No. A traditional cream soda is root beer.
Oh, well, root beer flavored, yes. I would agree with that. Sorry. The standard cream soda in Japan.
There you go.
So I do feel like you got some great fruit flavors in here, but actually the cream is detracting from that, whereas melon cream soda, it detracts from only the sweetness of the melon.
Which feels like it balances out, if anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to give it a 6. It's not a high 6. It's definitely a low 6. It could have been rounded down to a 5, but it's going to be a 6 for me.
I think so, too. Because I don't think it deserves high enough to get to 7.
No.
That was what I was trying to figure out. It's definitely above 5.
I was trying to decide between higher 5, lower 6.
It's definitely passable. Well, again, if you're trying to get a fruit cream soda, if that's what you were aiming for.
Yeah.
I think it's detracting.
It's nice. I think the peach calpis is better, in my opinion. This is not quite... Yeah, it's just not great. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. That's what it is. It's fine.
Now, to
move on to more fine.
To probably move on to more fine. We have a KitKat today, and the KitKat today is interesting sounding. I got this on a whim because this sounded awful.
Let's take KitKat and take all the sugar out of it.
You remember how I was describing a while back where you were saying, oh, there are a couple of things that you saw, but they didn't quite reach the standards that you would like to hold this to. And then I said, I have no standards. I believe in going with whatever sounds the most chaotic and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, I say, welcome to the whole grain KitKat. It sounds chaotic and weird and awful. And so I saw it and I went, yes, let's subject ourselves to this.
Well, your standards are, it's either something that looks really good or something that looks really bad, right? The mediocre stuff, we'll get if we need to, but...
That being said, I usually do tend to like emphasizing the ones that I'm pretty sure are going to be awful. Because I find that more entertaining for myself. So the whole grain KitKat is tan.
Oh, is it tan inside? Oh, I haven't opened it yet. I gotta see.
It is tan.
I mean, the bag is very plainly tan.
It's not just tan. It's like
sand.
It's like you have taken a cup of coffee and poured so much milk into it that it no longer is deserving of being called coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks maybe like a tea color. Like a black tea, again, that you add milk to.
It actually smells a little bit sweet.
It does. I'm trying to figure out how this is whole grain, or what was it again?
Whole grain. Mm-hmm. It's not going to taste like cardboard, I hope.
No, it's going to taste like whole grains.
Mixed with chocolate or something. Doesn't look like chocolate, so let's see. The whole grains are in the biscuit part, that's for sure. This is the most wafery tasting KitKat we've had, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I don't consider the wafer part of the KitKat because somehow they just make the wafer part super sweet, right?
Yeah. It's very different from what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really sure what to expect given whole grain.
I was definitely expecting something a lot less sweet. I mean, it's not amazingly sweet.
No, I don't remember if it actually was, but it definitely tastes in the otona aji.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I would think so. The
adult flavors.
Adult sweetnesses. Not adult flavors, but adult sweetness.
But yes, the adult sweetness, it definitely tastes like they've lowered the level of sweetness. But also, I think my biggest feedback on this one is it feels very granular.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You bite into it, you chew it, and after you've had your KitKat, you can still feel a grittiness in your mouth. The mouthfeel is very granular. Yeah.
I agree.
I think the initial flavor of the KitKat, I thought it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the way that it leaves your mouth feeling after you've eaten it, I don't think I'm a huge fan of that. I think giving more emphasis to the wafer was cool, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, the granularness, the fact that I feel like I have a little bit of sand in my mouth, except better tasting sand.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that kind of grittiness in my mouth. It takes it down a couple of notches for me. What about you?
I think so too. Yeah, no, I think the biscuit, while it didn't taste bad, like you're saying, in fact, I mean, it tasted maybe better because the biscuit wasn't sweet or providing the overpowering sweet flavor. I think the biggest problem was that the grittiness, like you're saying. In some ways, the not sweetness of the biscuit was a fairly nice balance to the sweetness of the, well, faux chocolate, whatever the stuff around it was. So that balance, I think, actually worked pretty well, which, is partly what I think the Otona KitKats are trying to do.
The adult flavor KitKat?
The adult sweetness KitKats. So in some ways, I think it succeeded there, but yeah, the granularness definitely subtracts.
Yeah. So the question is, where does this land?
Oh, yeah, that is a good question.
I think I'm going to have to give this a 5.
Just passing?
Just passing. Were you thinking about giving it a 4 or less?
No, I think it is just passing. The granularness isn't enough to bring it below passing.
Yeah, if it was less granular,
it would be more successful only.
Mm-hmm. Like the flavor balance in the in the KitKat as a whole, I feel like that's easily like a 6 or more. Maybe a 6. But with the mouthfeel afterwards, I have to bring it down to a 5.
That sounds good. Because, yeah, you're starting higher because of the flavor and then only subtracting because of the texture.
Yeah. Yep. KitKats, you failed me again.
For the last time. No. Probably it's going to come up again.
No, it's not for the last time yet.
Not yet. Still more failures coming.
Oh, given how many KitKats there are out there, I'm sure we will come across a couple more winners and a couple more real choices. They're choices that people make.
Not always for us. They can be for them.
Those choices have been made, and that's their choice to allow that thing to exist. They chose poorly.
They've chosen poorly.
So, Nate.
Yes.
I had you read a book.
Interestingly, though, this is the earliest book in the Discworld books that you've had me read.
Yes. So, it is the third book, technically, in the Discworld series.
I was thinking about that later after I finished. I was like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was the third book in the Discworld series. It was actually the first book that he wrote that the main character wasn't a wizard named Rincewind.
Right, okay, so the first 2 books were both Rincewind.
Yes, the first 2 books were both Rincewind, which Rincewind's a good character, but a lot of the things that happened to Rincewind really set up his character as somebody who the world kind of happens to. He's an interesting character, and I think is a great character for introducing other characters. But this was his first book that the main character was not Rincewind, because this one, the main character, I think you would probably argue that it's Escarina.
Yeah, well, okay, that's something we're going to talk about later, actually.
Good, because I think it might lead into some interesting discussions with that. But yes, this is the book 3 of the Discworld series called Equal Rites.
I did like the play on the name, Equal Rites.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yes, because it's rites spelled Rites.
As in the witches' rites.
Like magical rites, the practices.
Yes, exactly, those practices. So that was fun. I enjoyed that.
He has a lot of fun titles, puns like that too. Again, the reason why I had you read this one was to introduce you to the Discworld books. I thought I should have you read the first book of 3 of the main ways in which you can be introduced to the world through either the Death novels, the Guards novels, and the Witches novels. This was the third of those 3. But if you have not read Equal Rites, you should stop, read the book, listen to the book, but don't just listen to us. You should actually experience this book first. But for those of you who have read it, I will provide a short little summary to get you caught up so that you can remember some of the bits and pieces and get involved in the conversation here. In the Discworld, the number 8 is a special number, a magical number. So one day, when the 8th son of an 8th son was born, a wizard named Drumbillet gifted his staff right before he died to that child. Unfortunately, he did so without realizing that the 8th son was actually a daughter. This was a problem because, well, there are no female wizards, and staffs are for wizard magic. Granny Weatherwax, the local witch and also the midwife, suggested that they destroy the staff. They just forget about it, destroy the staff, and be done with it. And when that doesn't work, she instead suggests that the child's father hide it, and they did so for years. But the magic of the staff and this wizardliness seems to be more and more evident in Escarina Smith, or Esk, as she's better known as. Knowing the magic was leaking out, Granny Weatherwax decides, okay, maybe it's best to train her as a witch, hoping that maybe that'll settle things down. But the wizard magic and this influence of the staff, they just don't let things go easy. And with a near miss when they were trying to borrow an eagle's body and a few explosions, that became a very obvious fact. So Granny Weatherwax decides that the only solution is that she needs to be trained in wizard magic. And so she takes Esk to the Unseen University to have her trained as a wizard. As they are traveling, the magic continues to leak out and cause varying levels of trouble. While they're traveling, She also seems to get delayed and stopped several times, with the insistence of each of those occasions that she shouldn't be making this trip. She shouldn't be going to the big city. She shouldn't be doing all these things because she is a she. All of these things are standing in her way. This comes to a head when she meets a wizard and a student who the wizard is guiding. The student's name is Simon. The wizard tells her that in no uncertain terms that she cannot herself be a wizard, because being a wizard is for men, and women should just become witches and use magic that, as he put it, was not the higher magic. But eventually she does arrive at the Unseen University, and when she does, she's denied entrance. She's denied being allowed into the school as a student, but instead gains access by posing as a cleaner. And in her desire to learn about being a wizard and learn how to control all of this magic, she sneaks into the library where she once again meets up with Simon, who turns out to be a very brilliant student. But his brilliance also brings the attention of other things. Things that live out between worlds, who only want to steal their way into existence by gaining some sort of purchase into the imagination or through magic. He draws the attention of those beings. And in an attempt to keep those creatures at bay, Esk freaks out a bit and eventually knocks Simon unconscious. Realizing the trouble this has caused, Esk calls for Granny Weatherwax to look at Simon. When she does, they discover that Simon, his mind is gone. It's gone to that space between worlds, to where those creatures are from. And Esk follows him there to save him. And by Simon and Esk working together, they realize there is a deeper kind of magic, one that works against the conventions and norms that bind them. While this is all happening, Granny Weatherwax and the head of the academy go and retrieve Esk's staff, which she had thrown away in a fit of despair, and they officially dub her a wizard, making Esk the first official female wizard. And she and Simon also realize that witches and wizards could both use aspects of each other's magic, and that tradition and these gender norms were not quite as important as they initially thought. All right, so I'm going to ask the dumb, simple question that I always ask. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I think let's talk later about how you want me to rank them.
Before you even think about ranking, I want to know how you feel about this one individually, not necessarily yet comparing it to the others.
I think this was a very good one. I think there was a lot of, humor embedded in the narration that just was great all the time. So definitely appreciated that. I thought it was very good as a story. And if anything, I thought that there was too little pushback on them getting their equal rights. Things just unfolded pretty quickly and easily for them. Yeah, they had to fight. And there's still too many gender norms probably. But anyway, I thought that all went down too easy, but it was enjoyable. I think it was more of a fight than it would not be as humorous of a book. And I think the humor struck very well in this book. So,
I mean, that being said, they did have to fight for it. And also, while it might have seemed a little simple, it was also the fact that they were only granted these equal rights when all of this chaos was happening. So it was essentially to prevent something worse from happening. They were like, well, I guess we can give these women the right to be a wizard to prevent something worse from happening.
Mm-hmm. Right. So they were kind of pushed into it.
Yeah, it didn't sound like initially they were all that thrilled.
No, they were not open to it. So yeah, I guess you're right. If anything, it was super convenient that there was a struggle that they could work through together to win over to the side of, oh yeah, these ladies are okay.
Yeah.
I did like the old friends coming back, Death and Librarian. Of course, they're not old friends. I'm assuming Death has come before this.
I think I've said this, but I think Death is in every book but one.
Right. He's already shown himself. The next book would be Mort, right? Because Mort was fourth, right?
Book 4 is Mort.
So yeah. So Death is next, and then we don't learn about the librarian who figures into the Night Watch book a little bit.
But the librarian shows up a lot.
I learned of the librarian through
Guards.
Through the Night Watch, which was a good.
I wonder, when is his first appearance? Oh, that makes sense. Librarian appeared first in The Light Fantastic, so book 2. let's just say that book 2 is got a little bit of an explanation on why he's a orangutan.
There were some good characters. Start with some of the smaller ones. I did think that Simon was not going to be a great wizard. My first thought was that, Esk is going to do something to impress the wizard that he's walking with, and then Esk will get to go, or at least get to the university with that wizard, and then shenanigans will happen to get her enrolled. But that was kind of my thought. So I was not expecting Simon to be somebody who was big and be a part of the final conclusion at the end. Didn't expect that at all. But that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That Simon actually is a decent wizard. He just doesn't see what he's doing.
I mean, not just a decent wizard. He also seems to be one who sees into the core of, is able to try to really describe things. He's a brilliant kid.
Mm-hmm. Although I have a lot of questions about if he came back from his ordeal and doesn't speak with the same speech patterns. Is it really him?
That's a good question.
Because they did talk about not everybody coming back the way they were or getting replaced with something else on the way back in. That's my question there.
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't think he shows up in many other books. I don't remember him showing up in many others.
But I think that's one thing that we can ponder. The book's not going to tell us, and I guess we're not going to find out, but that's an interesting to ponder. They were talking about how they might miss the reintegration and that something else might come and take their place. Can it really be that it is Simon and he just lost his lisp or allergicness to the letter W? Is it? I don't know. I think that Terry Pratchett probably meant this as yet another thread that he could decide whether or not he wanted to tie up. Mm-hmm. My headcanon is going to say that it's not him. I think it's not him, and I think that's setting up stuff for later.
My headcanon was always that it is him, but the trip out into essentially the space between worlds where he sees kind of more of the substance of how the world works changed the way that his mind was perceiving things. He said earlier in the book that he didn't stumble over his words when he wasn't thinking about it. So I think there was a shift in how he was thinking. So my headcanon was it was the traumatic experience of everything that had happened that essentially left him a little changed. So my headcanon was it's still him, but he was altered by the experience. That's my headcanon.
I liked the two main characters, but I definitely did fall to the trap of thinking that this was going to be a book about Esk. I fell headlong into that trap. It's like, oh, great. Okay, we got a granny at the beginning here. Well, she'll help a little bit in the journey, and then she'll fade to the background, and everything will be great. But no, the grandma has a very important role in the story.
Granny Weatherwax.
And I'm guessing she probably appears in future books.
Well, keep in mind that the future books for this series are all referred to as the witches' books.
So yes, so she would, and potentially not Esk. Although I guess Esk is walking the line between witch and wizard still. So yeah, I definitely was very pleased when Granny got her own story arc. She's this secluded witch who's having fun doing her own things and enjoying her time. Doesn't want to mess things up with a city trip or being in the city at all. She doesn't have great feelings about it, but yet she gets used to it. She likes it. She likes certain things about it. So she's got her own little story arc in this whole story.
She ends up wearing red.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of black velvet. I thought that was very neat. And I think, if anything, Esk was a little bit weaker because Grandma ended up showing more strength in the storyline than Esk did. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think she's a weaker character.
Not weaker character, I don't think. I think it's just you find Granny Weatherwax a more interesting character, potentially. And I think that's a pretty common consensus. Granny Weatherwax is a fantastic character. She does grow through this, kind of breaking out of this idea of, no, this is things have always been, this is how I will always do it, but also being extremely wise about certain things. There are certain things where she was like, did you just think that I said this because this was just Granny's old ways of doing things? Well, that might be true, but there was also a reason behind it. But yeah, no, she is just a fantastic character who, yeah, this is a bit of a spoiler, but she is one of the main characters who comes up a lot in the other witches books.
I think the thing, again, that makes it the fun book, though, is the humor. The humor mixed in. I think, if anything, this book had less plot-driven humor,
Mm-hmm.
but maintained the same level of humor. I think the other ones had a little bit more plot-driven ridiculousness.
Yes. Whereas this one, the humor was there were a lot of jokes in the narration rather than necessarily it being kind of interwoven with the plot.
Right. I think the plot was more serious.
Yeah, that being said, I think part of that it has to do with the fact that this was book 3.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not saying it's bad.
No, I'm not saying it's bad either. I'm merely stating that I think Pratchett figured out how he wanted to balance these things as he wrote more.
And maybe it's because there's an undercurrent of suspension of disbelief with the wizards and stuff, that there doesn't need to be a dragon that got escaped in the land, right? There's just an undercurrent of wizards who are doing this and witches who are doing this and all of this other suspend your disbelief stuff, but not ridiculous. There's not ridiculous plot. It's just normal. In fact, I think it made the humor stand out better because the plot's not being ridiculous. So
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just different, and it was great.
That seems like a good place to segue into the important question. How do you feel about this in comparison to the other two?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have a hard time. I think maybe it's been too long since I've read Mort. Not your fault, but I think I like it more than Guards.
Okay.
More because I go back to my one minor complaint on Guards was that I didn't know who I was following. The book started following the Tall Dwarf, and then, now I'm following, Vimes. Okay, Vimes is the important guy.
Guards and the Night Watch is more of, that's an ensemble play.
Right. It's a minor complaint. I liked this one, again, with the curveball that it threw me that, Granny's not just going to be at the beginning here, not just going to be important for training. She's going the whole way through the book. So there was still 2. I guess one of my questions with Mort is, I think one of the things we were discussing was that Mort doesn't necessarily make it. He's returning back to the human realm. Mm-hmm. He is not going to really make it in the rest of the books.
He makes some appearances.
I think my conclusion is, I don't know if I can still pick a series, right? Because I think one of your things was, which series should we read here? I think let's continue to hop around.
All right.
It's going to take us longer to get through everything, but if that's okay with you.
That's fine by me.
But I think let's continue to hop around because I think I'm not going to be able to pick a favorite of the series. I think they're all fun. And even though I have minor complaints with Guards, I think it was fun too. So I think let's not judge that series off its first book either. Let's keep going.
So here's my thinking. I think these 3 series that I've introduced you to, I love all 3 of them in different ways. I don't know if I could ever say, this is my favorite. But again, that feels like telling somebody to say, all right, which is your favorite child? And I don't think anyone can. I'm looking forward to continuing down this path then. It's not like we'll ever run out of books anytime soon. Unfortunately, for some reason, I keep having you read these series that become long and convoluted.
Yeah. Well, we'll just get through it slowly. I mean, there's 40-something books, right, in Pratchett?
There are. There's that, and then I also have you reading Wax and Wane right now, and occasionally I'll introduce new books to you. One of these days, we'll get through all the books I want to introduce to you. And then when that day comes, I'll probably have discovered a new series for you. I love the Discworld books. They're wonderful, and I'm glad that you enjoy them too. What have you got for me next week?
Next week, let's read a book that was in one of our Sakura book lists, which is an award that Japanese librarians award certain books. So my daughter read it. I read it. It's called We're Not From Here. And it's an interesting take. It's a young adult fiction book, and it's an interesting take on a dystopian future. Earth is spent. Our resources are gone. We're leaving the planet and we're landing somewhere else, and what happens when we land somewhere else. So it's an interesting take on that, and I'm interested to see what you think of it as well, because I thought it was a fun book because it does mix in some politics that the main children characters have to deal with, and they're not the ones deciding things. So they have to live with the decisions that the adults are making, kind of thing.
Yeah, you've mentioned little bits and pieces, and I'm intrigued enough to see and wonder where is this all going. Looking forward to it. We hope that you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on, and we appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey with us. And if you ever thought to yourself, hey, I really like these guys, but I just wish there was some way I could support them, some way that I could keep them doing what they're doing. Well, you can. Visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. But what does it mean to be a member? Well, for the low price of $2 a month or $15 a year, you can support this podcast, keeping us on the air. And you also get access to the members-only podcast, Not My Hill, which is where we discuss things that are probably somebody else's hill to die on. As the title says, they're not ours. Somebody else can die on that one. But we do have very strong feelings about them nonetheless. In addition to this, you will also get access to the suggestion form where you can make suggestions for our Listener Hills episode, where we will watch, read, or generally climb up the hill that you're willing to die on, and we'll talk all about it. So go ahead and suggest a book that you would love for us to discuss, or a movie you'd love for us to see, or a TV show that you think we really need to see. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at the subreddit My Hill to Die On, or contacting us at Twitter through My Hill to Die On, or you can reach us by email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. Finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On.
Yeah, it's sticky.
Yeah, it is.
The sad thing is it's not even that bad.
Nope. It's early summer still.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna get worse.
This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. This is just how it starts. I mean, it's also good because I'm pretty sure if I keep you up any later, you are just going to pass out.
Yeah, we're both going to fall asleep in the middle. Mm-hmm.